He was in Canada first of all, because he spends a lot of his life outside. And somehow it all worked out magically. And I did get that phone call, and Pat said, I think I'm available. I can do it this year. And I had the story to tell. So you read the bio, Pat is not going to spend any more time. Just wanted to say how fortunate we are. It doesn't happen very often. We're all good presenters. All stories are equally, deserving of being here. But there's some people who have traveled for longer and in different ways. That's not necessarily a perspective that Pat is going to bring today, but nevertheless it's going to be an awesome story that involves a canoe trip with two humans under 10 years old.
Two humans? These are the humans. On the left we have my son Lewtas, 9 years old, and on the right we have his brother Lewtas, also my son, 5 years old. What's that? Lights on, please. Yeah, that's great. And we can kill that picture at any time. So last summer, the three of us went up to northern Manitoba. We started at Tadoule Lake, went down the Sioux River a short ways, then up the Wolverine River to its major headwater lake at the Nunavut border. Then we turned around and retraced our steps towards Tadoule Lake. Our story tonight begins on August 8th, our 23rd day out. We broke camp at 9 o'clock in the morning. We approached the rapids, and I did not scout this rapids. There are mistakes. The Robinsons made a mistake last summer, but this was a lapse in judgment, and that's unforgivable, even if you don't have your two young sons in the boat with you. We realized we were drifting into it on the wrong side of the river. We scrambled to get to the other side of the river. We failed. We glanced off a rock. We filled the boat with water, and the next set of rocks, we pinned the boat. The boat lurched to the left as the upstream gunwale dipped beneath the water. Lebanon, the young one, he tumbled into the water. He looked up in terror. I grabbed him and scooped him into the canoe. There's a moment of instability when a canoe first hangs up on the rock before it settles into a fixed position or wraps. And you have to take... That's what happens when you pin a canoe. Okay, you have to catch this moment of instability. So I thought, I can't do anything about this canoe when it's filled with packs. I can't get the packs to shore. We're too far from the shore, and we'll lose the moment of instability. Besides, I'm not going to leave my kids here. I can't get my kids to the shore, because then the packs float out of the boat, and we lose the moment of instability. So the only choice open to me, I thought, was to jettison the packs, which we did. 11 items committed to the current. I tasked Lewtas, the elder, with the job of noting where they ended up. I struggled for a little while to free the boat, fruitlessly. Then I knew I had to get Leadham away, so I took him downstream to a large card table-sized rock and stashed him there. I told him that he could lie or sit, but he could not stand. Then I spent 2.5 fruitless hours trying to free the boat. I did everything I could think of. I even went ashore to get some big trees as levers. But after that time, Lewtas confirmed that I had achieved nothing except beating myself up and exhausting myself. And I thought, well, I have a lot to do, and the day is very uncertain, so we have to end this now. I turned to Lewtas and I said, our trip hasn't ended, but our canoe trip has. So we said farewell to the boat, and I took the kids to the shore, and I took the 2 day packs to the shore, and we only had those and the clothes on our backs. Fortunately, however, the day had started nastily. Cold, overcast, gusty, and spinny, so we were well dressed. Our first lucky break happened when the weather improved. It became a warm, sunny day, and it was partway towards that when we left the canoe. On shore, I didn't want the kids to panic. I didn't want them to think anything we did was purposeless or unstructured, so I explained our plans. I said, Our plan for the end of the day is to gather as much of our stuff as we can and camp somewhere safely and comfortably. In the meantime, we're going to go there, pointing to the packs stranded across the bay, and recover them. I told the kids that we would review these plans every time there was a change in circumstances throughout the day, which we did, and I invited them to suggest amendments or additions to our plans, which they did. We very soon discovered that the country was appalling. It was a recent burn turned into a willow thicket with jackstraw spruce trees everywhere, hummocks thigh-high, and knee-high bushes underneath the willow thickets. On top of that, it was a wetland. It was appalling country, and it soon became clear that Liam could not walk through it. So I had to pick him up and throw him on my back. It's now 12 o'clock noon. We got to the first set of packs. These were strung out along a stony reef coming out from the left-hand shore. We were able to recover them, but that took an hour. We recovered 2 tump-lined canoe packs, our tent, which was a 30-pound canvas tent, no longer 30 pounds, and a duffel bag with our foam pads and our bag of stovepipes. We had effectively a winter camping outfit. We cached them on shore, pretty much where we had recovered them, and then pushed on to the next pack, which was a canvas Duluth pack stranded on a rock mid-river, just a short ways down. So we went there, and I waded out into the river, recovered the pack, brought it on shore. However, there was no place to mark the location of this pack. It was just in the midst of this endless, soggy willow thicket. So I thought to myself, well, I don't want to take it with me on spec because the country's so appalling. So I left it there with the kids. They could call me in when I got close, and in the meantime, they would allow me to travel much faster. So I pushed on. Downriver, and I came across 2 more packs, one of our food packs and a day pack. I stashed them on a bouldery shore and then pushed on further. I traveled downriver another couple hundred meters, found nothing, decided that this was a waste of time. We had to get back, and I did, however, discover one thing, which was our second lucky break. And this was off to the left, a couple hundred meters inland, a hill. So I went up it with the day pack. I scouted it, and it was flat, and it was dry, and it was open, and the ground was hard, and it afforded a 360-degree view of the surrounding country, which soon became very significant. When I approached the thicket, I yelled for my kids, who shouted to me and called me in, and I learned that this had happened. They were crouched on the ground, backs to the pack. About 10 minutes before I returned, a bear approached them. They jumped up, but fortunately did nothing stupid. They didn't panic, they didn't flee, they didn't scream. Larix came over to lead him and put his arm around him, presenting one large object rather than 2 small ones. The bears circled around 2 or 3 meters away from them, trying to get at the pack, and they circled with it, keeping themselves between the bear and the pack. Larix remarked to Liam, "You will never have a better view of wildlife than this." 3 times, the bear approached this close. Once, Larix was uncomfortable with the proximity of the bear, so to get it to back off, he stepped forward towards the bear. The bear fled into the bushes when my voice cried out. At no point did the bear behave aggressively or threateningly. So I had planned to leave Liam at that pack, the 5-year-old, and bring the other stuff down to it with Larix. But of course that plan went out the window. There was no way I was going to leave a 5-year-old untended with a bear around. So I decided to take the kids up to the hill where we were going to camp. I put the Duluth pack on Larry's, because that was one of the packs that he had been portaging, and I carried Liam, and it became clear very, very quickly that wasn't going to work, because the countryside was just too cluttered, too rough for Larry's to carry the now waterlogged pack. So I put the pack on me, gave Liam to Larry's, and he half helped Liam and half dragged Liam along. It was very slow, but we did make it to the top of the hill. So then how do I get back to the campsite where the kids are? I had thought to take several trips, but the bear had shown itself to be highly interested in our worldly possessions, and I needed two things. I needed the copper pack, everything in it we needed. I also needed the tent. And this tent weighed, I don't know what, soaked up with water as it was. I could barely drag it out of the river when I recovered it upstream. So I said, well, there's nothing for it. I put the copper pack on, threw the tent on top, and it was a crushing weight, but I managed to stagger along very slowly, huffing and puffing like a steam locomotive. And then, some distance later, I broke out of the bushes, and I could first hear and then see my kids frolicking on the hill. And you can imagine what a wave of relief washed over me at that point. So I got up there. The kids had had no further encounters with the bear. I unloaded the stuff I had brought. We arranged it against that rock. I took out the electronics, positioned them separate from the rest of the packs, and I renewed the instructions I gave the kids. Here's what you do to save the equipment. Here's what you do to save the electronics. Here's what you do to save yourselves. It was now 6 o'clock in the evening. So I went back for the next load, and there at the cache, I find the bear. I shushed it away, but not too forcefully, because I didn't want to drive it back towards the kids. And then I repacked the remaining goods and put them on my back and left. And I had to chuckle, because we had done a really good job up to then about leave no trace. But now, this area looked like a landfill site. So, I got back to the campsite at about 7 o'clock in the evening. The kids, again, had had no further encounter with the bear. What did we have and what did we not have? Well, more to the point, what did we not have? We did not have our flashlight. We did not have fire starter. We did not have any of our kitchen equipment. We had lost most of our food. We had no axe and saw. We had no tent poles. We had no repair kit. We had lost most of our hardware. My sleeping bag was gone. My spare clothes were gone. And my wallet, ID, and car keys were gone. So we assessed the tent. That was the first thing we did. We opened it up, rolled it out, and it wasn't as bad as we thought. The floor was badly torn. One of the outer door panels was shredded. There were tooth marks in the roof of the tent, and one of the guidelines had been pulled off. So we used the little saw on Larry's pocket knife to cut and size 2 tent poles. Then we reattached the guy line with a pebble. You've seen that trick. You put a pebble, you wrap it in the tent fabric, and you tie the guy line off against the neck underneath it. We then cannibalized some duct tape that we had used to seal one of the biscuit boxes, and used that to plug the holes in the tent roof, and also to plug the puncture wounds on our water cube. And throughout this, once we were done, we were tickled by what we had. We had beforehand thought that we would be very grateful with any kind of serviceable shelter, but we had a bug-proof, weatherproof, and gratifyingly solid tent to crawl into that night, which was a real triumph. Now, I should say that throughout this, the kids had helped me out enormously. They were sometimes assisting me. They were sometimes on sentry duty, walking in slow, large circles around our campsite. Because during this time, the bear paid us about 6 visits. Usually it stayed far enough away. 2 times I had to shush it away, and once it made a dash into the camp, grabbed a life jacket, and made off with it. It was now 8:30 at night. So what we did then is we moved absolutely everything into the tent. We wanted nothing outside to attract the bear, even stuff that was so badly mauled it was of no further use to us. And we arranged all of this stuff around the center pole of the tent, and then we placed the 2 remaining foam pads and the 2 remaining sleeping bags on them so that 3 people could get use out of them. And then we went into the tent at 9:33 sunset. And in the tent, we arranged the sleeping bags and the foam pads. I got out the satellite phone. I called out to our 2 contact people, neither of whom picked up the phone. And then we had a shitty, dry dinner, and the kids went to sleep. And this was 10:30 at night. I hardly slept at all that night. I fully expected the bear either to barge into the tent to get at our stuff or to tangle its leg in one of our guidelines, knocking the tent over or otherwise causing trouble. And I was hearing noises all the time. I have no idea how many of them are real, but twice I shouted out to scare an imaginary bear away. But I will say this. I got up at first light, 5:15 in the morning, to pee and to empty our piss jug. And as soon as I put my head out of the tent, there was the bear, 6 feet off. And I don't know whether just by chance it had returned the moment I left the tent, or whether it had spent the night with us. In any case, both Larix and I had the sense that the bear was lonely. And this is crazy but not implausible, because the bear was a juvenile male in its first season away from its mom, and maybe it had not yet fully reconciled itself to its solitary life, and maybe it welcomed some kind of company. It was a strange bear. It was totally unaggressive, but also fearless. It was unflappable. When you chased at it to scare it off, it wouldn't run off like most bears do. It would back up and stay put, retreat maybe 5-6 feet. So it was a puzzling creature. Okay, so during the night, I mapped out in my head the phone calls I was going to make the next day. And then when we got up, I called out, started the arrangements for a pickup, and then we had a shitty dry breakfast. I told the kids I wanted them up and out of the tent because I was going to scout a route to the Sioux River. We were about 400, 500 meters from the Sioux River. There was no place to put a plane down where we were, so I wanted to find whether we could get to the Sioux River without undue difficulty and whether a plane could be put down there. So I wanted the kids not to be in the tent while I was gone doing that. So I was gone for about 45 minutes, and when I came back, the kids had had no encounter with the bear. Everything was good. And then we spent the rest of the morning drying out our outfit and conducting an inventory of it. And during this time, the bear made continual visits. Usually it would circle us widely, browsing on berries, playing this game of mind. And sometimes it would come into the camp and we would have to chase it off. Again, never once did it behave in a malign fashion. So all was good. In any case, mid-afternoon, we were unexpectedly visited by David and Leah Jackson, who were on their 73rd day of a spectacular 78 or 79-day canoe trip, which took them everywhere. And they were as surprised by us as we were surprised by them. And they stayed with us for the rest of the afternoon and that evening. And we used some of our food and a lot of their food to throw together a magnificent feast, which we ate around a crackling, toasty fire. And we talked late into the evening, which was wonderful. The next morning, the Jacksons got up, and I got up, and they were pushing off. They promised to look for our remaining packs and take them down to the mouth of the Wolverine River if they found them. And as that happened, we heard a voice from across the Wolverine River. And the voice said, "Lots of signs of bear on this side of the river." And I replied, "Lots of signs of bear on this side of the river too, like bear." This was Robert, one of 4 men who had boated down the night before from Tadoule Lake to fetch us back to town. And that is where today's story ends, although the trip back to Tadoule Lake and the aftermath, which lasted several months, are fascinating. But I'd like to end with a few afterthoughts about taking kids into the deep wilderness. Obviously, you should have another adult. If nothing else, the kids are up shit creek if something happens to you. It's also good to have a second boat. So why do I take the kids with me? I'll give you 3 reasons. There are lots, but I'll give you 3. The first is a selfish reason. I like spending time with my kids, I like canoeing, and this way I can do both. The second reason, when I sat at my mom's deathbed, I knew that I would feel guilty. I've been a good son, but like every kid, I could have done better. And I was losing the opportunity to pay her back. When Lewtas was born, I understood that you'd never pay your parents back, that it's sick even to think you should. You discharge your debt to them by paying forward, by conferring the same benefits on your kids that were given to you by the generation before. And the wilderness is one thing I have which I can pass on before everything becomes decrepit. The third reason concerns something David Pelly mentioned. The wilderness is valuable on many counts, but especially because it presents kids with something that is very much in short supply in their lives otherwise. And that is undiluted, unnegotiable, unmanipulable reality. And I want my kids to taste that before it's no longer available to be tasted anywhere. Now, the kids had a great time on the trip, and our misadventure ended up a constructive experience. They reminisce about the trip all the time, fondly. Minor adversity and modest fear can often be wholesome. The kids are keener for this summer's canoe trip than they would have been otherwise, I think. For my part, the events this last summer were very chastening. But I did come away with one great gift. I like my kids, and I enjoy my kids. But on the Wolverine River, I grew to respect them. Thank you. So I'm not much of a photographer. I should say that almost all the pictures were taken by David and Leah Jackson. David's a professional photographer and writer, and he was generous enough to provide us with many pictures. So the first picture that you just saw was the outside of the tent. The outside of the tent. The tent and the stove, the sheet metal wood stove, weigh in at about 50 pounds total, but you buy a lot of safety and comfort if you have young kids out in the far north. The second picture, a really terrible picture, is a view of the inside of the tent. In the foreground, you have the stove, which is generally not visible. The next picture, there's our canoe. This is David Jackson, I think. Leah's taking the picture. And this rock here is the rock where I stashed Leadham for 2.5 hours. Yeah, sure. button. Magnificent. So that was Leadham's. And in the next picture, this shows the canoe firmly pinned. I should say that I was completely wrong when I hastened to take advantage of what I thought was a moment of instability, because the canoe was as stable as could be. You see, it's pinned not against the rock you see, but against a line of 3 rocks. And it's not going anywhere with the strength I had to bring to the problem, and everything I did failed. Next picture. This shows where all the events happened. The rapids up there, at about a third of the way down in the picture, that's the rapids where I messed up. The rocks sticking out after the next bay. The next fast water, that's where we found the second pack, and the willows immediately in from that is the spot where the kids had the encounter with the bear. I managed to recover the other packs in here and cache them there. And this, of course, is our tent and our campsite, which was, this is, you see the Jacksons and us, and then the next picture is apropos of nothing, but it's just a reminder of why we go out there in the first place.